Good morning, this is John Tanner. This is my video on riding in northern Utah. I live in north of Salt Lake, so I'm in the northern area of the state, so most of these are trails that I can ride with a very short drive or haul on the horses a short distance, and it makes it easy for me to get out and go get some exercise on my horses. The first place I want to show you is up at Snow Basin Ski Resort. This is an actual resort, and they don't allow you to ride the horses on the resort itself, but all around the resort are Forest Service trails, and we access it by parking in the Snow Basin parking lot and then ride the Forest Service trails that are around the outside edges of the resort. I like it because there's a lot of greenery up there. It's mid-elevation, so 6,000 foot to 7,000 foot. There are a lot of bike trails in that area, and you will encounter bikers and hikers if you go up there. There are deer and moose there in the summer months. It has some stunning wildflowers there in the month of June and July. Like I said, we park in the lower parking lot of the ski resort, so be courteous and clean up your manure. The resort gets a little upset at that. Middle Fork is on the Middle Fork of the Ogden River, which is also in the Ogden Valley. It's just another 5 minutes or so past Snow Basin. This is a conservation area where the Fish and Game owns the land, and they protect it during the winter months. The animals have a place to winter, so you can't ride there from about November 15th to April 15th, but it's available the rest of the year. North Fork is owned by Weber County. It's a recreational area for the county. You got a lot of trails in there, mostly for bikers at the lower elevation and horses at the higher elevation. You can ride up to Ben Lomond Peak. Or you can stay low and ride the lower elevation. Most of these pictures are taken on the trail from Cutler Flats up to Ben Lomond, and you can see we're a little higher elevation here, but you can ride the lower trails, and we do it in the springtime before the upper trails are accessible because of the weather. This area also has a lot of wildflowers during June and July. It's green and pretty, and just a good area. Has corrals so you can put your horses in. I don't remember what the cost is, and it's easy to get to as far as access. Mountain Green is a community in the Morgan Valley. It's right off of I-84. We access it by the frontage road, and there's several places you can access this, but a lot of private land in there. You have to be careful where you're riding, but you can ride up to low level elevation. It's early to get on it, April, May, before you can get up on the high country. Red Rocks is another wildlife management area that's up East Canyon. This again is protected during the winter months, so November through April, but you can ride it late April through November. It's a good climb, but it just follows up the bottom of the canyon. It's an in and out trail. There's no loop available on it. There's good parking at the bottom. It's easy to get into right off the pavement. This is Sugar Pine Canyon on Montecristo. There's a parking area right behind the Montecristo campground, and you have access through the gate to drop down into the canyon. This one goes downhill to start with, and you have to climb uphill on your way out. I'm going to stop here and you can listen to my recording as I roll. This is Sugar Pine Canyon on Montecristo. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's about 64 degrees. I'm probably around 9,000 foot. It's a beautiful day to be out riding. It's the 4th of July, and I'm getting a little horse ride in before I have to do my family barbecue, 4th of July type of activities. We'll put some miles on this horse and build a little confidence. He likes to be in a herd, and this riding by himself a little foreign to him, so we're going to focus on going forward and going where I point him and doing what I ask him as a single horse. As you can see, this trail um, goes from being covered in timber to open, but it's all pretty much in the bottom of the canyon. It's fairly easy to follow if you just go down the canyon and then turn around and come back. If you want to make the loop out of it, knowing where to turn to make the loop and how to come around and get back to your truck takes a little more of a mapping and knowing where you're at, and kind of probably better if somebody showed you that the first time. But if you follow the trail that I've logged here, you can definitely find your way around. You do park behind the Montecristo campground, and there's a fence there that you just ride along the fence till you find the gate and go through the gate and then drop down into the canyon. It's a nice parking area. It's easy to get into and accessible. The next one's also on Montecristo. It's called Bluff Springs. The backcountry horsemen built some corrals there in 2018. Again, it's the same kind of trail. There's not a lot of markers on it, and there's so many other trails in the area from the cattle that run in there during the summer months that it's easy to take the wrong trail and go the wrong direction. So you either want to follow a map or have somebody show you the loop there, or just go up and wander back to your truck. Don't worry about making a loop. Davenport Springs or Little Grand Canyon is a trail that it's a little tough to get to. I don't like taking my gooseneck trailer in there. It's much more accessible if you have a bumper pull. The road kind of twists and tilts, and the bigger trailers have a hard time on that. But you ride over and look down into the upper end of Blacksmith Fork Canyon, which is called the Little Grand Canyon of Montecristo. And there's some really nice views looking off of there. Franklin Basin is up Logan Canyon. There's a number of trails in Logan Canyon that you can ride, but if you go up toward the top of the canyon, there's a dirt road that goes up to Franklin Basin, and a few, half a mile in, there's a nice campsite that you can park. There's numerous trails from there up to Old Steam Mill Lake, White Pine Lake, Peterson Hollow, Hell's Kitchen, and you can see some of these are in the bottom where you're riding and just follow the trail up the bottom of the canyon. Others are going up the ridge top. Um, like I said, there's trails all over, but there's a road in the bottom of the canyon. If you get lost, just go downhill and find the road and go back to your truck. Um, these are rough enough. I don't see many mountain bikers on most of those. Peterson Hollow does get a few bikers on it. But for the most part, this is just going to be horses, cows, and occasionally hunters in the fall. This area does get a lot of traffic on holiday weekends because Bear Lake is just over the mountain, another 20, 30 minutes away, and people who can't afford to stay or don't want to stay in a motel, whatever, oftentimes will come back here and put up tents and camp, and you sometimes see ATVs on the road. But once you get on the trail, you pretty much have it to yourself. You can see here it's a nice campsite with corrals and plenty of room to get a truck in and turned around. As I mentioned, out of the Franklin Basin campground, there's numerous trails. And White Pine is another one that rides up and makes a nice in and out trail. Basically, there's a few diversions you can make it into a loop. But for the most part, it's an in and out trail. Stump Hall is about a mile, maybe 2 miles up the road from Franklin Basin. We usually park at the pull off for the Beaver Mountain Ski Resort, and they ride their horses during the summer up there as part of the resort, so the trail's pretty well maintained by that horse group, but it's open to anybody who wants to ride it, and it makes a nice loop. Down closer to the mouth of the canyon is the right-hand fork of Logan Canyon, and you pull in there about a mile, and there's a girls' camp there, and just beyond the girls' camp is a corral and a parking lot that you can park in. Bikers use this a lot because it's close to the Logan City and the Utah State University, and so there's a lot of mountain bikers in this area in the summer months. Here you can see we're riding it up there in late November, and the snow hasn't really gotten too deep yet. There are trails there that the ranchers hold up, but if they're not used by the rancher, usually you can get away with putting your horse in it. As I said, we were there in November, and this is what the snow kind of looked like. By December, January, this is a couple feet deep, but we can get away with it after the first couple snowstorms. Then we kind of have to abandon it for the winter months.
It's one of those where you
I will say this parking lot can get a little congested if it's a Saturday and there's a lot of mountain bikers up there. They might not park to allow you to get your horse trailer in and out. Antelope Island is where I ride in the winter months. It's an island in the Great Salt Lake. It's moderated by the lake's temperatures, and so it doesn't get quite as cold as the mountains. Snow doesn't get as deep. It has a granular footing, so it's easy to ride on and doesn't get real muddy and sticky. Has a lot of wildlife, buffalo and other animals, white antelope, bighorn sheep, and so forth to look at. It is a state park, and so you have to pay the state park fee to get in, but it has a couple places that are real easy to park. You can go down to Gar Ranch and ride, or you can park at White Rocks and ride from there. So there's numerous trails on the island. The kiosk, when you pay your fee to get on, can give you directions to each of the trails. This is the Gar Ranch, and you can see the big parking lot right there by the ranch. This is the other parking area at White Rocks, and you see there's camping and plenty of parking there. Okay, another area I want to talk about is Strawberry. This is about 100 miles away from Salt Lake City. It's a parking at 8,000 feet, right up to 10, maybe 10.5 on most of the rides. It's one of the largest quaky forests in the world, and so you're riding mostly in quaky trees with a few spruce and pines. A lot of water, a lot of grass. They run cattle in there during the summer months, and so you should be prepared to see ranchers and cattle in the area. ATVs and motorcycles run up and down the dirt road, but once you leave the campsite and the parking lot areas, you'll never see them. They're not allowed on the single tracks in the back country. This area has some beautiful color in the fall when the quakies are in their fall colors. And a lot of yellows and golds in that area, and it makes for a pretty ride.
They don't have the touch thing anymore.
From the parking area, there's about 4 different trails going out in 4 different directions, so you can wander all over. I've had people park there for a week and just ride and never repeat the trails. Also close to that, you can go across the Center Canyon on the other side of the highway. You can go down to Current Creek, and there's a horse camp there, and you can ride up the same country. You're just coming at it from different directions, and so there's plenty to see up in there. Probably to spread out and be away from other people. You're going to see elk, deer, moose. Occasionally I've seen a bear up in this country. So I've developed a relationship with the ranchers up there, and I'll occasionally help them in the fall gather their cows, and that's always been fun for me to work my horse on cattle for a little bit on the mountain there. But you can also see, even if you're not working cows, if you're just out riding and looking at the colors, it's a beautiful area. Up American Fork Canyon is a place called Salamander Flats, and there's numerous trails that lead from there and go out. This is a multi-use area, so there's hikers, bikers, and even occasional motorcycles on these single-track trails. I found most everybody to be very courteous and not cause a problem with my horses, but you will encounter some motorcycles on trails in this area. Tierra is out in the West Desert. This is an area we go in the winter months, March, February to ride because there's not much snow. That's why it's a desert. It has had some fires out there, and so it's burned off some of the country there. It's got some good footing if you want to let your horses run a little bit. It's just open BLM land for the most part, so you can just kind of go wherever you want. Stockton is another West Desert location out on the just south of Tooele. We park at the gravel pit and ride up toward the mountains. Oftentimes, if the winter is cold enough, the elk will be down lower, and you can run into a herd of elk out there. And it's mostly sagebrush, junipers, pinyons, and so it's easy to ride even in the winter months or early spring. February, March time frame, and keep your horse legged up, and when you can't ride them in the city. Thank you. Hope that gives you some ideas of where to ride.